The moment Claire approached me with that man, something within me snapped into place. Not like a realization, more like a puzzle piece that fits into a picture I hadn't even realized I was assembling. The man was tall and built like someone who had spent too much time in the gym. However, it wasn't his appearance that drew my attention. It was his eyes. He looked at me and saw something I'd never seen before on a stranger's face. It was not intimidation, nor was it respect. It was as if he was studying me, as if he were measuring me. Claire, on the other hand, acted as if this were just another work party, as if we were just another married couple socializing with her coworkers. She grinned as her fingertips rested lightly on his arm. And then she mentioned my name, like an afterthought, as if I were just background noise in her real life. Nick, this is Adam. We work together. Adam. The name didn't mean anything to me, but he nodded at me and gave me that faint, almost undetectable smirk. It explained all I needed to know. Claire was continuing talking about a project at work, and how Adam was so amazing at what he did. But I wasn't listening. My mind was a static-filled TV screen, flickering across months of minor facts I had overlooked. Late evenings at work, with her phone never leaving her side. The perfume. The way she began taking more showers. She claimed she was stressed from work. Adam extended out a hand. I shook it because that is what you do. And when I did, he squeezed slightly too tightly. As if he was establishing something, I should have played along. Should have grinned, should have nodded. I should have pretended I hadn't seen what I did, but I couldn't. Instead, I laughed sharply. Claire turned to face me, surprised. Adam lifted his eyebrow. Do you think this is funny? Claire inquired, her voice soft but with an edge beneath it. I tilted my head while still looking at Adam. I said. He didn't look away a little. Claire's fingers clenched around the glass. Adam simply smiled, slow and sluggish, like if he was enjoying it. And then I walked away. I did not storm out. I did not make a scene. I just turned and left. Weaving through the gathering as if nothing occurred. I could feel Claire's gaze searing into my back. I could feel the moment. She paused and then followed. She caught up with me outside, and the chilly night air hit both of us like a slap. What the hell was that? She snapped and grabbed my arm. I turned to face her, slowly allow her to view my face. Allow her to truly look at me. What's going on between you and Adam? I asked, my voice to be even more calm. Claire blinked. She scoffed and shook her head, as if I were ridiculous. Oh my God. Are you serious? I said nothing. Her mouth opened and closed. Then she rolled her eyes. Jesus, Nikki. He is a coworker. A coworker looks at me as if I'm a joke. You are imagining things. That's when I realized she wasn't simply lying. She wasn't even attempting to fib. She brushed me off as if I was a child asking too many questions. Something within me constricted. Claire made her initial step back as I approached her. I want you to say something. I replied quietly. Say what? Say you have not been sleeping with him. Claire didn't respond. She did not have to. I walked to the bar, grasping the edge of the counter, as if it were the only thing keeping me upright. My heart was pounding in my ears, overpowering the monotonous hum of talk around me. That look. It was not paranoia. It wasn't about insecurity. It was real. And now that I'd seen it, there was no turning back. I turned back toward them. Claire and Adam were still conversing and stood uncomfortably close. She cocked her head as he spoke, giggling at something that wasn't even humorous. Her fingertips brushed on his arm, lingering. I had seen her like this before. Flirty, playful, and never with me. Not for a long time. Something was extremely wrong. Another whiskey. The bartender's voice interrupted my thoughts. I hadn't even noticed I had finished my drink. I nodded, tightening my grasp on the glass as I watched them. I watched her, as if she could feel my gaze burning into her. Claire turned, and for the first time in our marriage, she appeared guilty. Not surprised, perplexed, or guilty. She recovered quickly, smiling as she approached me. Heels click against the floor. Adam did not follow, but he was observing. Oh yes. Something was happening. Hello, babe. She remarked, sliding her arm around me as if nothing was wrong. You okay? I forced myself to maintain a steady voice. Yeah, just needed a drink. She grinned, but not with her eyes. Good. Because I'd like you to meet some of the other team members. It's crucial for me that you get to know them. I nearly laughed. It's important to her. Since when? She was never concerned with balancing job and family life, but I played along for the time being. Because if I was correct, and what I believed was true, Claire had no idea she had just committed the worst mistake of her life. I let Claire guide me through the crowd, her fingers lightly clutching my wrist rather than my hand, as if she was directing me rather than holding me like I was just another accessory to complete the picture she was attempting to paint. I did not say much, just watched. Listened. She presented me to a few coworkers, laughing and smiling while acting like the ideal wife. Like nothing was wrong. But the fissures were visible. Her laughter was too rapid. Her eyes flew around too quickly, and she slipped. It happened when she introduced me to a woman on her team. Melissa is a vivacious redhead. Oh my God. Claire mentions you frequently. Melissa gushed. I smiled pleasantly, but my mind was already analyzing her remarks. Claire talks about me. That was unusual, because she seldom spoke to me at home anymore. Melissa then turned to Claire, grinning. Remember that night following the award ceremony? We were all really inebriated. Claire stiffened. Most people would have missed it because it happened so quickly, but not me. Her fingertips dug into my wrist. A whispered warning and request. Melissa saw it too, but she kept her mouth shut. Suddenly awkward. Anyway, yeah, it's a pleasure to finally meet you, she said hurriedly, attempting a grin. I did not even blink. I just glanced at Claire and waited. She sensed it. She sensed me figuring it out. So she did what she knows best. She lied. Oh, honey, I completely forgot to tell you about that night. It was following an incident at work. Nothing insane. Melissa, this is just a little team bonding, right? Melissa's laughter was strained. Forced. Egregious. Totally. I let Claire draw me away again. But my mind was already racing at 100 miles per hour. She forgot to tell me. Bullshit. That was hardly a forgotten story. That was a hidden story. And I had a fresh question in my mind. Cold and sharp as a knife. Who did she hide it from? Myself or him? I did not drink after that. I needed my head cleared. Claire was still playing the role of the ideal wife, introducing me to people and behaving as if everything was normal. But her grip on my wrist became firmer, as if she could feel me slipping out of her grasp. I allowed her. I smiled. I nodded. I played the trusting husband, but on the inside, I was trying to figure out what was going on. Melissa aired. Adam's guilty sweat. Claire wears perfume. Those late nights. The distance. Then came the moment. That moment shattered every illusion I had. Claire left me for a moment to get another drink. I remained where I was, pretending to examine my phone and not to see her. She stepped right up to him. Adam. And the way they gazed at each other said everything I needed to know. Her eyes softened, and his shoulders relaxed. They leaned in slightly too near. Then her hand slid across his chest. Quick and subtle. But I saw it. She brushed her fingers down the color of his shirt, adjusting it as a girlfriend or a lover might. And he simply stood there, allowing her. That was it. That was everything I needed. Something inside me became icy cold. I wasn't guessing anymore. Claire wasn't simply cheating. She was content with it. Confident. Arrogant. As if she'd done this 100 times before. Right below my nose. I was not angry. Not yet. But I'd had enough of playing dumb, so I did the only thing that seemed right. I grabbed out my phone and snapped a photo. My hands became more stable as soon as I shot the image. My heart slowed. It felt bizarre. Like if my body had gone into some sort of quiet before the storm mode. I had proof now. No more guesses. No more paranoia. Just the cold, obvious truth. And the best part? She didn't realize I had it. I put my phone back in my pocket and turned toward the bar. Acting casually, but inside, a storm was rising. My jaw clenched so tightly that it ached. My hands ached to grab Adam by the collar and push him through the nearest table. But no. Not yet. Claire still believed she was in control, and I was curious to see how far she would push her luck. I did not have to wait long. She returned a few minutes later, holding her drink and smiling as if she hadn't already touched another man. She acted as if she hadn't just humiliated me in front of the entire office. Miss me? She teased, nudging my arm. I actually looked at her, and for the first time, I saw her for who she truly was. Not my wife. Not my partner. Simply a liar in a gorgeous dress. I forced a smile. Of course, she grins. Completely unaware. She assumed she had gotten away with it. I assumed I was still the same gullible idiot I had always been. But she had no idea because I wasn't just confronting her. I was about to destroy her. I maintained my cool. That was the hardest part. Claire was right there, smiling and patting my arm, like if she hadn't just fixed another man's collar like a little housewife. Pretending she didn't lie directly to my face every day. I could have terminated it right there. I could have taken out my phone, shoved the photo in her face, and seen her perfect little world come crashing down. But it wasn't enough. I wanted her to feel how I felt. Blindsided. Exposed. Trapped. So I leaned in, brushed a hand over her waist and spoke. You know what, babe? Let's find Adam. I feel like we started off on the wrong foot. Her body stiffened. Just a second. There is a brief moment of hesitation, but then she let forth a phony, bubbly chuckle. Really? That is very sweet of you. Sweet. She assumed I was being sweet. I smiled. Yeah, I just want to get to know this guy you spend so much time with. That did it. A shadow passed across her face. It was gone as swiftly as it had arrived. But I saw it. She was calculating now, attempting to figure out what I knew. Too late, Claire. It's way too late. I let her hold my hand. Allow her to lead me through the celebration as if she were still in control. Like this wasn't the start of her own demise. And when we got to Adam, I grinned broader, extended my hand, and asked, So, Adam, how long have you been screwing my wife? The instant the words left my mouth, time seemed to stand still. Adam's face had lost its color. He froze his drink halfway to his mouth, his gaze drawn to Claire like a trapped animal. Claire? Oh, Claire. Finally gave up the act. Her artificial smile evaporated. Her eyes opened briefly before she forced herself to scoff. What the hell are you talking about? She was still attempting to deceive. They're still attempting to play me as if I'm some dumb moron. I chuckled, because it was so predictable, so pitiful. I took out my phone and turned the screen towards them, and there it was. The photo. Claire placed her delicate tiny fingertips on Adam's chest. Her eyes were warm, affectionate, familiar, intimate. This is not some innocent professional friendship. Not a harmless interaction. Proof. Adam made a strangled sound, as if he were ready to throw up. Claire. She did not even look at the television. She moved right into defense mode. Oh, God, are you serious? She snapped and crossed her arms. You're acting insanely. I felt his shirt and realized I'm cheating. You are embarrassing yourself. Am I embarrassing myself? That's all she cared about. Not me, not our marriage, her image. Adam, on the other hand, he seemed to want to melt into the floor. He was sweating more profusely than before. His hands shook as he placed his cup down. He was not designed for this kind of pressure, buddy. He started. But Claire cut him off quickly. Don't say anything. She growled at him before turning back to face me. You are exaggerating this situation. I smiled. Slow and frigid am I. Then I scrolled because that wasn't my only picture. I had more. Claire's face altered as soon as I started scrolling. So arrogant. You are embarrassing yourself. Look. Gone. Because she knew what was coming. Her lips parted only slightly. Her fingers jerked as if she wanted to remove the phone from my grasp. However, she didn't. Because doing so in front of everyone would require her to admit the truth. So she just stood there, horrified, while I flicked through photo after shot. The first picture was the same. Her touch on Adam's chest was too familiar for intimacy. The following one. Claire leaned in close to murmur something into his ear, his hand resting dangerously low on her waist. The third. They were standing too close together at the bar. Her fingertips touched his wrist. Then the final shot. The one who buried her. A photograph I hadn't intended to shoot. It was fuzzy, captured in action, but clear enough to discern what was important. Claire placed her hand on Adam's thigh, beneath the table. The game is over. I turned the phone around, allowing Claire and Adam to absorb it, let it sink in, and watch as the final bits of her life burned to ashes. Adam went into a panic. I'm looking for the first male. I swear it isn't what it seems. I shut him off with one look. Adam, shut up. However, he did Claire. She went in a different path. She laughed. Not a genuine laugh. A quick, bitter, terrified chuckle. The chuckle of a woman whose world was collapsing around her, with nothing left except damage control. Are you serious now? She replied, shaking her head. You're stalking me at my own work party, taking photos like a jealous lunatic. I raised an eyebrow. What exactly are you jealous of? Your side piece, sweating through his shirt. Adam made a strangling sounds, but I didn't look at him. He wasn't important anymore. Claire did. Because I wanted to hear her say it. I wanted her to admit it. So I stepped closer, lowered my voice, and asked, Tell me, Claire. This is the present moment. Are you cheating on me? She paused for just a second. Just long enough for me to realize she was going to lie to my face. Was there a hint of terror in her eyes? She knew she had been cornered, but Claire, a cold-blooded liar, refused to concede defeat. She raised her chin, crossed her arms, and said the biggest, boldest lie of her life. No, I am not cheating on you. The party noises surrounding us dwindled to nothing. I swear, I could hear my own heartbeat. He will listen, she stared back. And then I did something that took the last shred of confidence from her face. I gave a slow, knowing, almost amused smile. Because I was done listening, playing her game, and allowing her to treat me like some gullible fool who would swallow whatever nonsense she threw at me. That is your solution, I said in a calm voice. She nodded and doubled down. Double down even harder? Yes. Whatever you thought you saw, whatever you think, you're mistaken. And that's when I decided that this woman would never manipulate me again. I gave a tiny laugh. All right. Claire blinked, puzzled. This was hardly the reply she expected. All right, she repeated. I nodded. Yeah. All right, you're not deceitful. Cool. She looked at Adam and then back to me. She sensed it. The shift. A loss of control. She was not winning. So we're okay? She asked. Be cautious now. I grinned. Big and vibrant. I'm dead within. Oh, Claire, we're terrific. Let's get out of here. Her shoulders relaxed. Adam still appeared to be seconds away from a nervous collapse. But Claire believed she had won. She assumed I believed her. She had no idea because I wasn't driving her home. I was taking her straight to hell. Claire strolled out of the party with her head held high, as if she had just driven the automobile of the century and convinced me that all I saw and knew was simply a crazy fantasy. She had no idea. She had no idea that the instant we arrived home, her entire life would detonate. The automobile journey was silent. She presumably assumed I was sulking, processing, or doing whatever she expected a guilt-ridden, obsessively jealous husband to do. I was not. I was thinking about the emails I had sent myself from her laptop. I was thinking about the texts I had retrieved from her cloud backup. I was thinking about the divorce papers that were in my office drawer. Most of all, I was thinking about the live stream. See, Claire embarrassed me in front of the entire office. She smiled in my face as she played house with Adam right in front of me. She had made me a fool. So I repaid the favor. I had created a private group chat earlier that evening. Just a few people, her parents, my parents, and a couple of her closest friends. And as we drove into the driveway, I pressed one button. I began recording. We walked inside, and she barely waited a second before she began speaking. Babe, please listen. I recognize that tonight was strange, but you need to understand why. I turned to her, pulled out my phone, and showed her the screen, the texts, the emails, and the naked mirror selfies she had given Adam, all of which were time-stamped in the middle of all those late nights at work. Her face turned pallid. I smiled. Still want to call me paranoid? She opened her mouth, perhaps to tell one more lie, but I wouldn't allow her. Do not bother. You're finished. Claire. To add insult to injury, I held up my phone once more. Except this time, I flipped the camera towards her. Say hi, babe. Her eyes widened as she saw the live feed notification. Which is when the screaming began. Here's the next story. The night I disappeared began like any other. That's how it felt at the moment. I had no clue that by the following morning, I would be gone, leaving behind a woman who didn't deserve me and a son who wasn't mine. Emily was in the kitchen, humming softly as she chopped veggies for dinner. The aroma of garlic permeated the air, blending with the faint sound of the television in the background. She appeared unfazed. So why wouldn't she be? She had been living a comfortable lie for some years. My hands shook, but I held them steady as I removed the envelope from my jacket. Thick paper. Official letterhead. A result I did not want to believe. Hey, I said barely above a whisper. She looked up, beaming the effortless smile I had fallen in love with years before. A lie. Everything about her was a lie. I received Jacob's test results today, I said. For a brief moment, the knife came to a halt in midair. Her whole body tightened. There was only a glimmer of something in her eyes before she hid it. Oh. She faked a light tone and set the knife down. What were they saying? I didn't respond. I put the envelope on the counter between us. She gazed at it and then at me, still acting ignorant. Open it. Hesitation. Her fingers twitch. She then reached for the envelope with measured slowness, as if it were a live grenade rather than a plain piece of paper. She took out the paperwork and scanned them. I watched as the color faded from her face. Do you already know? I asked. Emily gulped. I do not comprehend. Cut the bullshit, Emily. You understand exactly what it says. Jacob is not mine. Silence. A heavy, oppressive hush. She took a trembling breath and folded the paper, placing it gently as if she could smooth over the damage with precise folds. Then she did something that made my blood turn cold. She chuckled softly, as if I had just told her an unexpected joke. You're being very dramatic, she remarked, shaking her head. I felt something inside of me crack. The wrath that had been seething beneath my skin erupted like a dam breaking drama. Are you out of your mind? My voice raised, trembling with wrath. You have lied to me for 6 years. 6 years? Emily, do you have any idea what you did? She rolled her eyes. Oh please. It's not like you're the first guy to experience this. And let's be honest. Does it really matter? You reared him. He regards you as his father. I grasped the counter's edge to avoid doing anything I'd later regret. You've been lying to my face every day, and you have the gall to pretend it's nothing. Who is his father? She breathed through her nose and tilted her head slightly, as if annoyed. Why does this matter? It's not like you can change anything right now. My eyesight blurred with wrath. I wanted to break something. I wanted to break him. She let the faceless bastard into our bed. Tell me, who is he? She crossed her arms. You do not want to know. The air became electrified, filled with unsaid words and angry silence. My heartbeat sounded in my ears. I wanted to get an answer out of her, but she just stood there, a smug, annoying sneer twisting at the corner of her lips. I took my keys off the countertop. I am done. Emily's smirk wavered. What? I am done. I repeated. I'm not going to stand here and let you trick me into believing this is fine. You're lying, Emily. A selfish and ruthless liar. Her features turned harsh and nasty. Oh. Grow up. What? Are you just going to flee because things became tough? That's quite mature. I laughed bitterly. Emily, things didn't get too tough. You have betrayed me. You made me believe Jacob was mine while screwing another guy behind my back. You stole 6 years of my life. She scoffed. Come on, you love Jacob. Are you genuinely telling me that discovering you're not biologically related erases everything? I stared at her, the lady I thought I knew. She felt no remorse or guilt, only a bottomless pool of deception. You can't twist this. I replied harshly. You cannot rewrite reality simply because it makes you uncomfortable. You are a liar, and I will never associate with you again. I turned and walked out the door, leaving behind me. Her voice sounded harsh. Angry. Desperate. Fine. Go ahead and leave. You will crawl back when you realize you can't live without me. I did not stop. I did not glance back. Because the moment I went outside that house, I knew one thing for certain. I was never coming back. I drove for several hours. I can't remember the roads, street signs, or whether I stopped at red lights. My mind was like a hurricane, ripping apart every conversation, action, and memory from the previous 6 years. Every Emily's I love you felt like acid in my veins. Every time I kissed Jacob goodnight, every time I'd held him in my arms, believing the asterisk. Asterisk. Knowing. Asterisk. Asterisk. He was mine. It was all a lie. A terrible and ruthless deception. I pulled into a motel parking lot after midnight. The neon vacancy sign flickered faintly, throwing an eerie glow on the cracked pavement. I checked in without thinking or completely processing what I was doing. The shopkeeper handed me a key, scarcely looking up at me. I was simply another fatigued traveler. I walked into the little, musty room and flopped on the bed, looking at the ceiling. My hands were still trembling from the confrontation. Emily smirked at me, as if I was overreacting. I felt like an idiot for expecting my wife to be faithful. Who is his father? The question seared in my mind. She had not responded to me. The smug, contemptuous tone. You don't want to know till her voice echoed in my ears like a gunshot. She was wrong. I needed to know. Because if I had a name, I had a goal. I grabbed my phone. No missed calls or texts. Of course not. Emily was not the type to chase. She'd always been like that. If you went away, she wouldn't pursue you. She just convinced herself that you'd crawl back eventually. But she was also mistaken about that. I opened her social media and went through old images. I had no idea what I was looking for, but my brain was hardwired for conflict. There had to be something. Then I saw it. A picture from 6 years ago. The timeline was great. Just a couple months before Jacob's birth. It was a group photograph from a work event. I'd seen it before, but today I saw it differently. He stood next to her, his arm just touching her back. Was Daniel Carter her boss? The same boss she had always spoken about. The one she had spent additional hours at work with. She insisted that he was only a mentor. A horrible realization crept over me. That was him. It had to be him. Asterisk. Asterisk. I sat up so quickly. My vision blurred. My pulse beat in my skull. I'd spent years shaking this man's hand at workplace events. I had congratulated him for assisting Emily's career. I'd chuckled at his idiotic jokes. And all along, he had been cheating on my wife and raising a son. It should have been his. I gritted my teeth so hard that my jaw ached. I needed to see him and hear it from his mouth. To watch him try to lie to my face. I took my keys and rushed out of the motel room. The drive to Daniel Carter's residence felt like a haze. I didn't know how I got there. I must have run through stop signs. I barely glanced at the streetlights. But I didn't care. My grasp on the steering wheel was iron tight. My heartbeat sounded like war drums in my ears. Emily lied to me. That was already a festering wound that I'd never forgive. But Daniel, that arrogant bastard, had looked me in the eyes so many times. Shaking my hand, I pretended to be the respectable employer while secretly seducing my wife and having a child with her that I couldn't let go of. I drove up to his house. This is a big place. Fancy. The type of home that a true father should be able to provide for his child. My stomach lurched with the thought. I barely realized it was almost 2 a.m. I didn't care. My hands shook with adrenaline as I jumped out of the car and stormed toward his front door. I did not knock. I pounded loudly, persistently, and violently. There was a pause. After a few seconds, I heard shuffling from the inside. A light flickered on. The door creaked open by an inch. A hesitant voice comes through. Who the hell? The minute I saw his face, something inside me cracked. Daniel Carter. Tall salt and pepper hair. Still wearing his damn jammies. His expression was sluggish and bewildered until his eyes latched on mine, and then, for a brief moment, I saw it. Recognition. Guilt. A spark of terror. And that's all I needed. Surprised to see me? I let out a growl. Daniel blinked, rubbing his face to get himself awake. Jesus is a guy. It's 2 o'clock. I shoved the door open so violently that he stumbled backwards. Hey. Hi. What the hell are you doing? He snapped and regained his footing. You tell me. My tone was deadly calm to calm. For years, you've been secretly playing house with my wife. Now I think it's time for us to talk. His face became blank. The perfect mask of perplexity. Fake. I have no idea what you're talking about, he replied. I laughed, a brief, unfunny laugh that felt like glass shards in my throat. Cut the act, Daniel. I know about Jacob. I know the truth, and I'd like to hear it from you. His nostrils flared. I don't owe you an explanation for something that isn't there. I lunged to avoid hitting him. Not quite, but close enough to make him stagger back. He wasn't as tough as he pretended. You do not owe me an explanation. I hissed. Before you knocked up my wife, you absolutely owed me the truth. And let me raise your child for 6 goddamn years. His visage contorted into something hideous. You're creating a scene. I didn't care if the whole damn neighborhood heard me. Allow his wife to wake up, and let his children run downstairs. I wanted him to squirm. Was it fun? I spat, lying to my face for years, letting me shake your hand while you screwed Emily behind my back. Daniel's jaw constricted. Listen. No. You listen. I cut him off. I want to know how long that lasted. I'd like to know if you ever planned to tell me. Or were you just going to let me raise your son indefinitely while you played the respectable boss? For the first time, he appeared guilty. He didn't respond, and the silence told me everything. I moved closer, my voice lowered to a lethal whisper. Say it. Say that he is yours. He peered at me, his eyes moving left and right, as if he were looking for an exit. He exhaled quite quietly. Yes. Even though I knew what was going on, it felt like the oxygen had been squeezed out of me. Hearing that from his lips made it true. My fists clenched. My muscles coiled like springs. I'd never wanted to hit somebody so hard in my life. Daniel must have sensed it, as he raised his hands in faux submission. Look, guy, I did not let him finish. My fist collided with his jaw so forcefully that he stumbled back into the wall. He let out a strangled sound while grasping his face. You are the son of a... I grabbed his shirt and pushed him backward. You have taken everything from me. My voice shook with wrath. My wife, my son, and my life. And you have the audacity to stand here and act like you're the victim. Daniel straightened and rubbed his jaw, his eyes sparkling. Do you believe you are the only victim here? He snapped. Do you believe I planned this to happen? I laughed bitterly. Oh, I apologize. I was cheating on my wife, an accident. I loved her. The room became silent. My breath got locked in my throat. Daniel's shoulders tensed. His visage, once haughty and reserved, was now open. Now. Honest. That made matters worse. I adored her, he reiterated. I still do. My world swirled. I had braced myself for fury, denials, insults, and anything but this. Because this wasn't simply a betrayal. This was a confirmation. I had played the idiot in the story. The placeholder, the man who was never meant to know the truth. Daniel straightened and exhaled sharply. So what happens now? He asked. Did you get what you came for? Did you want to hear me say it? Fine. I said it. So, what the heck do you want? I stared at him. What did I want? Justice. Revenge. To wake up and find you've had a terrible nightmare. Or maybe I just wanted to burn everything to the ground. I turned and walked out the door, without saying anything else. Because if Emily believed she'd seen the last of me, she was mistaken. I didn't drive directly back to her. Not yet. My head was still reeling, and my knuckles burned from slamming into Daniel's arrogant, lying face. The wrath inside me had not subsided, it had evolved. Sharp. focused, dangerous. She assumed I would simply disappear. I figured I'd go away, lick my wounds, and ultimately crawl back. She had no idea what was coming. I parked in an all-night cafe that smelled of burnt coffee and bad judgments. The fluorescent lights buzzed as I slid into a booth in the rear and ordered a black coffee. I hadn't planned on drinking. I needed to think. And then I had to ruin her. Because it wasn't just about cheating anymore. This was not some shady one-night encounter that she regretted and hid out of shame. She'd constructed her entire existence around a falsehood. She had allowed me to raise another man's son. She'd seen me cradle Jacob in my arms, read to him at night, save for his future. She did not care that I was not his father. I picked out my phone and read through past messages. I wanted to discover something, anything, that could shatter her immaculate little world. The way she ripped mine to shreds. That's when I remembered our joint bank account. The one thing she hadn't had time to keep me out of. I logged in, and sure enough, the $14,000 was in our savings account. The identical account we had been establishing for the future. I stared at the screen. My pulse had stabilized and was now calculated. Underline our underscore. Future. What a joke. I pressed several buttons. I transferred every last dime to my own account. Gone. I could almost hear her scream as she realized I wasn't finished. Not even close. I scrolled further. Emily wasn't simply reckless with her lies. She was careless with her money. Recurring charges and private expenses. And one stood out, a hotel. Not only once, several times. I clicked on the information. My teeth were grinding so hard that my jaw ached. She had not even tried to hide it. I didn't think I'd be smart enough to look. It was not only Daniel. She had met someone else. I breathed slowly, squeezing the phone so firmly that my fingertips ached. This was more than just an affair. This was years of deception. Years of playing me for a fool. And I was finished playing. I rose up and left the untouched coffee on the table. It was time to head home. It's time to make Emily regret every decision she's ever made. That I pulled into the driveway just as the first rays of dawn appeared on the horizon. The house remained calm, as if it had not been the site of a 6-year fraud. I turned off the engine and sat there looking out the bedroom window, where I knew Emily was asleep. Peaceful. Unbothered. She was completely ignorant of the impending storm. I stepped outside. My heartbeat is steady, and my thinking is razor keen. No more hesitating. No more walking away. This time, I was here to destroy. The door was unlocked. She must have assumed I would be gone longer. Perhaps days, perhaps weeks. Maybe she assumed I would go for good. I'm taking my heartbreak with me like a good little moron. She was about to discover how incorrect she was. I moved through the home like a ghost. Past the framed photos of a family that never existed. Past the toys scattered over the living room. My footsteps were silent on the hardwood floor as I mounted the stairs. The bedroom door was slightly opened. Inside, Emily was snuggled up on my side of the bed, tangled in the sheets and sleeping blissfully, as if she had nothing to worry about. I leaned against the doorframe. "Wake up, Emily." Her body twitched slightly. A soft, dreamy murmur escaped her lips as she shifted beneath the covers. Then she remained still. Something in my tone may have reached her subconscious, as she did not move for a few seconds. Then she slowly turned over. Bleary, unfocused eyes settled on me. She blinked once. Twice. Confusion flared across her face, followed by comprehension. "Did you come back?" she whispered, her voice heavy with sleep. I smiled. "Cold? Cruel?" "Yes, I did." She sat up, the covers slipping off her shoulders. I could see the wheels moving in her mind, calculating how to play this, how to spin it. "I know you're upset," she began, her voice slipping into that gentle, patronizing tone she used when she felt in control. "I understand that, but leaving like that was immature." I laughed loudly and sharply. "Brutal." Emily flinched. "Immature," I repeated, entering the room. "Do you think my departure was immature?" Her lips parted slightly. She must have noticed something in my expression, because I saw it. Then the first glimmer of apprehension could. I took out my phone and tossed it on the bed in front of her. "Go ahead," I said. "Check our savings account." Her brows furrowed, but she reached for her phone, swiped open the banking app, and took a deep breath. Her head snapped upward. "Where in the hell is our money?" I grinned. "Gone." Emily's face flushed with fury and dread. "Did you steal from me?" "No. I took what was mine." My voice was soft yet tinged with threat. "Did you honestly think I'd let you sit on my money while you played house with someone else?" Her nostrils flared. "You have no rights." I leaned forward and cut her off with a whisper. "I have every right." Her mouth clenched shut. I could see her jaw moving. I could see her attempting to maintain her composure. She didn't expect this. She anticipated a broken man to return a defeated one. A man begs for an explanation and another opportunity. Instead, she grabbed me. My voice became more casual as I straightened. Oh, and while you're at it, review the transactions. See if anything stands out to you. She did, and I witnessed the precise instant she realized her error. Her face had lost its color when she entered the motel. I tilted my head. You should have used cash. Silence stretched between us. Who is he? When I inquired, her lips parted slightly, but no words emerged. Do not lie, I warned. A second of pause. Then her chin rose. That defiance was back. When I first approached her in the kitchen, she acted with the same arrogance. Why does this matter? She spoke with disinterest. You are already leaving, correct? I smiled. Slow and chilly. Predatory. Oh, Emily, I muttered. You don't get to choose how this ends. Her throat bobbed, and before she could react, I walked to the closet, opened it, grabbed her work bag, and threw it on the bed. Get dressed. Emily frowned. What? I folded my arms. We are going for a drive. She gave a quick, astonished laugh. Yeah, no, not happening. I took a step closer and lowered my voice. I said you may come voluntarily or not, or I'll begin waking up the neighbors. And when they question why I'm ranting outside at 6 a.m., I'll make it clear what kind of woman lives in this house. Her face became hard. She knew me well enough to realize I wasn't lying. Her lips pulled together in a narrow line. Fine. She rapidly dressed, pulling on trousers and a sweatshirt while staring daggers at me. I just leaned against the doorframe and waited. When she finished, she grabbed her luggage. Happy? She snapped. I grinned. Not yet. I let her out, unlocking the automobile. She paused before getting into the passenger seat. I could feel her displeasure emanating from her in waves, yet she remained silent. Good. I wanted her to think, wondering. I got into the car, started it, and pulled out of the driveway. After a few minutes, Emily crossed her arms. So, where do we go? I smirked. You will see. She sighed and rolled her eyes. God, you're so theatrical. Do you adore him? The question sliced through the air like a razor. Emily's lips clenched shut. I looked at her. Well, her jaw stiffened. That is none of your business. I giggled under my breath. Oh, but it is because you made it my business the moment you let me to raise another man's child, while sneaking off to hotel rooms with who knows who. She inhaled sharply and turned toward the window. This is pathetic. I didn't respond because we had already pulled into the hotel's parking lot. Emily stiffened. What the hell? I put the car into park. I turned towards her. Smiled. Let's go and meet him. Her eyes widened. No. I opened my door. Suit yourselves. She grabbed my arm. Stop. I shrugged her off. Too late. And then I stepped out of the car, slamming the door behind me, and striding toward the entrance. There was no need for me to search. I already knew the room number, and I wouldn't leave until I saw the expression on his face. 2. Emily jumped out of the car behind me, her steps sharp and furious on the pavement. What the hell are you doing? She growled and grabbed my wrist. You cannot merely. I jerked my arm away without breaking stride. Oh yes, I can. Her breath rushed out in quick, violent rushes as she tried to keep up. Are you insane? I ignored her. My attention was focused on the room number I had memorized from the hotel statement. Room 214. My heart pounded in my chest, but my steps were steady and controlled. Emily was not. She was unraveling. Listen to me. She snapped, stepping in front of me and attempting to block my passage. This is ridiculous. You are making a fool of yourself. I laughed coldly. Oh, I believe that ship sailed around 6 years ago. Don't you? Her face twisted in frustration. You do not understand what you are doing. I leaned in. I'm lowering my voice. No, you do not comprehend. You did not simply cheat, Emily. You did not simply lie. You built your entire life around this. On me. You stole my time, love, and future. And now I want to know who was worth it. She gulped hard. Then I pushed by her and walked down the hall. The numbers on the doors were blurry in my view until 214. I paused. Emily was behind me, breathing quickly. Don't. She whispered. I gave a strong knock, and the sound resonated down the silent corridor for a second. Nothing. Then action. A shadow passed beneath the door. The lock clicked. The door flung open, and there he was, tall, shirtless, perplexed, and unmistakably not Daniel Carter. I felt Emily stiffen beside me. The man, in his early 30s, fit, and with blonde hair still moist from the shower, looked between Emily and me before frowning. What's happening? I didn't respond. I was too focused on processing. Emily had slept with Daniel Carter. That much I was certain of. But this was someone else completely. A new type of rage flared up within me. Who in the heck are you? I asked. The guy blinked. Who in the heck are you? Before I could say anything, Emily grabbed my arm and yanked me back into the corridor. Enough, she snapped. This is ridiculous. You don't get to rush into my life and act like an investigator. I shook her off, my tone low and fierce. How many? Emily. Her expression twisted. Oh, get over yourself. How many? I repeated, my hands curled into fists. The blonde guy was still standing in the doorway, watching as if he had stepped into a soap drama. Wait a minute. Is he your husband? Emily gave a bitter laugh. Ex-husband. I turned to face her, my eyesight flaring white-hot. You assume we are divorced, Emily? I moved closer, my voice lowering to a lethal whisper. We are still married. Her mouth slammed shut. For the first time, she appeared truly caught. The blonde guy's brows rose. Wait, what the F? I did not let him finish. I turned back to Emily. So that's it. It wasn't just Daniel. You've been jogging around with him too. Emily crossed her arms in defiance. I do not tell you anything. I let out a breathless giggle and shook my head. Unbelievable. The blonde guy cleared his throat. I think I should shut up. I snapped without even glancing at him. He shut up. Emily's nostrils flared. Are you finished? I smiled. Sharp, cold, lethal, not even close. Then I turned to walk away. Because it wasn't over, definitely not. Emily did not follow me out of the hotel. Maybe she assumed I was done. Perhaps she assumed I had reached my breaking point and was leaving for good. She was wrong. I got in my car and sat there, grasping the wheel, my imagination racing to dark, violent places. Daniel. Finally, there's this guy. How many more? How many times have I been taken for a fool? I breathed slowly and controlled. I wasn't done with her, but I needed more. I got out my phone and scrolled back through the motel transactions. The stays were frequent. Too frequent for simply Daniel. Emily had not been cheating. She had been leading a second life. And now? Now I had to rip it apart. I dialed the phone of the one person who would be as interested in hearing this as I was. Daniel Carter. It rang once, twice. Then a groggy, angry tone. Who the hell? Wake up, Daniel. I replied calmly. We need to talk. A pause, then sharper. What do you want? You told me you loved her, correct? I said. I was told she meant something to you. An extended pause followed by a slow, controlled pace. Yes, I smiled. Then you will want to hear this. 15 minutes later, I was sitting across from Daniel Carter at a 24-hour diner. He looked like hell. I had punched him, causing a fresh bruise on his jaw. Hair unkempt and barely awake. But I could also see something else now. A sense of discomfort. Good. I slid my phone across the table. Go ahead. Look. Daniel grabbed it up, reviewing the hotel transactions. His frown grew. What's this? I leaned back and sipped the coffee I had planned to drink this time. That is Emily's small extracurricular schedule. And before you have any thoughts, no, not all of the visits were with you. His hold on the phone intensified. What are you saying? I smirked. I'm saying you weren't the only side character, Daniel. I watched the revelation wash over him like a slow-moving avalanche. He put the phone down and softly exhaled through his nostrils. No, Emily would not. Oh yes, she would. I cut in. She did. And if you're going to sit here and tell me she loved you, please spare me the BS. Daniel scratched his jaw and looked down at the table. He was not arguing. He wasn't denying anything since he knew she was playing us both. I said, and I don't know about you, but I'm not leaving here empty-handed. His eyes flickered up, wary. What do you mean? I leaned in. I'm lowering my voice. I want to ruin her. And I believe you do, too. He paused. I pressed. Come on, Daniel. She used you. Daniel Carter is an outstanding individual. Rich, powerful, and respected, but degraded to an idiot. That does not set well with you, does it? His jaw clenched. I smiled. Hook, line, sinker. So here's the deal, I explained. Emily believes she is the one, that she is untouchable. But she forgot one thing. We know all of her secrets. Daniel exhaled and rubbed his temples. What are your suggestions? I leaned back, smirking. Simple. We burn her world down. His eyes clouded, and he slowly nodded. Emily had no idea what was coming. Daniel and I sat at that cafe for almost an hour, nursing lukewarm coffee and a growing fury. For the first time, we were not enemies. We were allies. Emily has lied to and used two men, humiliating them. Two men had the ability to devastate her entire life. Did she ever say she loved you? I inquired, stirring my coffee, though I had no intention of drinking it. Daniel inhaled quickly and ran a hand over his hair. Yeah. I smirked. Same. A harsh quiet fell between us. She played us both. I continued. And if we let her, she will continue to do it. She believes she is untouchable. Daniel's jaws constricted. Not anymore. I grinned. That was exactly what I needed to hear. All right, I replied, leaning forward. This is how it will play out. Step 1. Ruin her security. Emily had enjoyed a comfortable life because she always had someone to rely on. Me? Daniel. Probably dozens of others. Everything serves to boost her ego. Her bank account. Her lovely little illusion ended tonight. I took out my phone and dialed the number of a locksmith. Yeah, hi. I need my house's locks changed immediately. Emily might have believed she still held influence over me. That I would ultimately get home. Sit down. Talk things out like an idiot. By the time she returned home, she'd been locked out permanently. Daniel was observing me. Intrigued. What else? I smiled. Cold. Calculated. We hit her where it hurt. Step 2. Expose her. I put my phone on the table. I suppose you still have relationships at the company. Daniel lifted his eyebrow. Of course. I tapped the table. Then let's make sure they understand what kind of woman Emily is. Did she sleep her way up? I am sure your managers would love to hear about it. Daniel tightened his lips into something wicked. They would. Emily had developed her career through deception, using men as stepping stones. But, Daniel. He had the power to take it all away. Do it, I said. Ensure she never works there again. Daniel nodded. Done. Step 3. Make sure she has nowhere to run. I opened my inbox and scrolled through old mortgage statements. My name is the only one on the house. Emily had never cared enough to have her name on the paperwork. She assumed marriage made it hers. I never thought I'd have the guts to kick her out. She was wrong. With a few taps, I contacted my lawyer. Need to start the eviction process for an ex. She has no legal title to the home. Can pay more for urgency. Daniel whistled under his breath. You're really not holding back. I looked up to meet his gaze. Are you in? A slow smirk appeared on his face. Not anymore. Step 4. Keep an eye on her burn. Everything was set into motion. The locks were being changed. The position is no more. Her home. Not hers anymore. And this is the final nail in the coffin. Daniel took out his phone and scanned through his contacts. With a delighted smirk, he turned the screen toward me. A named blonde dude. Guess who is in my contacts? Daniel mused. I grinned. Oh, it just keeps getting better. He dialed. The phone rang, followed by an agitated voice. Who the hell is this? Daniel sat back in his chair and smirked. Hello, buddy. I thought you should know. Emily's been screwing us both. Silence. Then what? I laughed. Emily had no idea what was coming. The parts were falling into place. Every single safety net. Emily assumed she was gone by the time Daniel and I left the diner. She did not have a home, a job, or a backup plan. And a blonde dude. He was upset. Daniel had put him on speakerphone. And finally, the words. Emily has been screwing us both out of his lips. The guy went completely silent. Then you are lying. Daniel grinned. Am I? I jumped in. Check your transactions. See how many times she booked the room using her name? Then ask yourself, who else was she bringing along? A pause, followed by the sound of furious tapping. He was examining his respiration, which had become ragged and uneven. You have got to be kidding me. Blonde guy murmured. Daniel chuckled. Do you still think we are lying? Silence. Then the wrath struck that bitch. I smirked. Welcome to the club. Blonde guy lost it, began cursing and pacing. You could hear it over the telephone. Then he said something that caused Daniel and I to exchange glances. I paid her rent. My eyebrows rose. Oh, this has just become even better. You what? Daniel asked. Blonde guy exhaled sharply, his voice brimming with rage. She informed me she was struggling and needed a place to stay while she sorted things out. I paid her rent for the past 5 months. I let out a low whistle. 5 months? That indicated she had planned her departure even before I realized it. Daniel shakes his head. Wow. She had you wrapped around her finger. The blonde guy was furious. Where is she now? Daniel and I exchanged glances before answering the hotel call at the same moment. The three of us arrived simultaneously. A blonde man arrived in a blacked-out Range Rover, looking like he was one wrong word away from flipping the entire hotel upside down. Daniel and I barely had time to get out of our car before he roared past us. His jaw clenched so hard I believed his teeth would snap. Where is she? He let out a growl. Daniel smirked. Room 214. We did not bother knocking. The blonde guy kicked the door so hard that it smashed into the wall. Emily, half-dressed, jumped about a foot in the air, holding her phone, undoubtedly about to contact me to attempt to pull some last-minute lie. Her eyes widened as she noticed the three of us standing there. What the hell? She breathed. The blonde guy did not even hesitate. You used me. You let me pay your rent while you screwed, what? 2 or 3 other men. How many? Emily? How many? Emily's lips parted, but no words emerged. I laughed. Oh, come on, honey, don't be shy with us now. Her gaze flashed between us. Panic sets in. She stared at me. Why are you here? You left. I grinned. Did I? Looks like I simply moved the battleground. A blonde man walked forward. Voices dangerously low. Give me back my money. Emily scoffed. I do not owe you anything. His expression clouded. Emily. Don't try me. Daniel seemed amused as he folded his arms. I would listen to him. He seems like he is about to break something. Emily's entire body locked up. She understood she was outnumbered. Exposed. And the one thing she had always counted on. Her manipulative abilities were slipping through her fingers. I leaned in. I lowered my voice so that only she could hear. You took her breath away. Hitched. I drew back, observing the precise moment she realized she had no way out. The blonde guy inhaled sharply, shoving his hand through his hair. You know what? Keep the blasted money. Emily blinked. What? He gave a sour laugh. Yeah, keep it. You'll need it. He then turned and walked out. Emily let out a slow breath. Okay, that's. Daniel cut her off. You've been fired, by the way. She snapped her head toward him. Excuse me. Daniel smirked. Yeah. I had a conversation with HR. I'm on my way here. They did not enjoy hearing how you leveraged your position to sleep your way up. So, congratulations. Your career is over. Emily paled. I watched, relieved, as the weight of everything finally hit her. Her job is no more. Her house. Not hers anymore. Her backup plan. I just stepped out that door. And then her gaze shifted to me. You? She whispered. I raised an eyebrow. Me? Did you do this? She spit. You. I grinned. Sharp. Cold. Final. No, Emily. I moved closer, voice steady. You did it to yourself. And with that, I turned to walk away. Because the conflict had ended, and I had triumphed. I did not glance back. Not once. Not when Emily said my name. Not when her voice trembled from desperation. And not when Daniel followed me out with a smug grin on his bruised face. By the time I got to my car, the sun had fully risen, painting the sky in soft, pleasant colors that seemed to belong in a distant planet. A universe in which the terrible nightmare had never occurred. But it occurred, and I burned it down. Daniel leaned against his car and watched me. So, he explained, running his hand through his hair. That was satisfactory. I exhaled, experiencing something I hadn't experienced in a long time. Relief. Yes, I admitted. Yes, it was. Daniel smirked as he looked back at the motel. Do you think she will land on her feet? I shrugged. Not my problem. Emily had been in control of the story for 6 years. She had warped reality, played the victim, and treated everyone around her like a pawn in her little game. But now she had nothing. There is no employment, no house, and no fallback. And the best part? She'd done it all to herself. Daniel pushed off his automobile, stretching like he'd just let go of something heavy. So, I'm going home. It seems like I've just finished a long-ass struggle. I snorted. That is because we did. He grinned. Take care of yourself, guy. And hey. He hesitated and then shrugged. Try not to hate the child. He never asked for any of it. My chest clenched at that. Jacob. I hadn't allowed myself to think about him. Not while I was plotting revenge. Not as I watched Emily disintegrate. But now. Now it hits me like a freight train. He was not mine. He'd never been. But that did not remove the memories or the bedtime stories. I bandaged the scraped knees. He looked up to me and trusted me. Daniel cast me a knowing look. He loves you. You understand. I swallowed hard. Yeah. I loved him, too. But love was not enough. Not after this. I nodded to Daniel. Take care. Then I got into my car and drove. I didn't return to the house. Not yet. The locks had changed. Emily was done, and I had nothing else to say to her. Instead, I drove somewhere peaceful and parked at an overlook where the city spread out under the buildings. Little and distant. The chaos of the previous few days had finally passed, and for the first time, I allowed myself to feel it. The loss, the treachery, the crushing weight of everything that had been taken from me. I'd spent 6 years loving a lady who was never fully mine. I had constructed a life around a child who, for no fault of his own, was never mine in the first place. And now I needed to start afresh. It should have felt like liberation. Instead, it seemed like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, peering into an unknown future. But then something changed. Because, yeah, Emily had ruined my history. But she did not get to control my future. That belonged to me. So I took a final peek at the city below. Then, with no regrets, I drove forward and never looked back. Thank you for listening to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Also, leave a comment below to share your thoughts on what happened. Take care,